E.T.'s so-called bad rep, the DNA hack. Preface: the firewall of the mind. We stand on the threshold of an encounter that has been 500,000 years in the making, yet we are currently staring at it through a fogged-up window of fear, deception, and outdated dogmas. This document, E.T.'s so-called bad rep, is not a floaty plea for blind faith in space aliens. It is a sober, mathematical, and biological dissection of our own resistance. Why do we instantly label the unknown as demonic, satanic, or dangerous? The answer lies not in the stars, but in our own source code, our DNA. Like an ancient training program, our DNA has taught us to perceive any deviation from our familiar resolution as a threat. That infamous bad rep of extraterrestrials is nothing more than a biological firewall running overtime. Our genetics simulate a predator where, in reality, a system administrator is standing. In the chapters that follow, we will dissect the causes of this cosmic smear campaign. We will expose how our own neurological short circuits, such as sleep paralysis, are being mistranslated. The military financial monster earns trillions by maintaining the illusion of an alien threat. Religion is weaponized to demonize advanced physics through obsolete labels. Our own pride and addiction to fear prevent us from accepting help from an entity that is 500,000 years wiser than ourselves. I do not call them the H.E.A.R.T.s for nothing. Benign helpers from extraterrestrial advanced realms that support. They are not barbarians with scalpels, but mentors operating through the mathematics of the sine wave and the logic of the tree of life. Their presence is the ultimate and final major update for our civilization. In this document, we move from the fear of the alien toward the understanding, acceptance, and love of the cosmic family. It is time to update our internal software, end the confusion of Babel, and make the transition to a world of abundance. The journey to the future does not begin with a rocket, but with the reprogramming of your own perspective. The expiration date, T.H.T., of fear has passed. The update is ready. Chapter 1. The Biological Firewall. Why we are programmed for fear. We begin at the source, not a source in deep space, but the source code within ourselves. To understand why E.T. has such a bad rep, we must examine how our biological hardware processes information. We think we see with our eyes, but in reality, we see through our survival instinct. 1.1 DNA as a survival simulator. Our DNA is much more than a static recipe book for blue eyes or brown hair. It is an adaptive simulation algorithm. For millions of years, our genetics have had one primary goal: predicting what might kill us before it gets the chance. In our current, limited 3D resolution, any entity that defies our laws of nature, such as flying without wings or walking through walls, is automatically labeled predator by this algorithm. Because we cannot place it within our normal logic, our DNA puts our defenses on high alert. E.T.'s bad rep is therefore, first and foremost, a biological reflex, a firewall blocking an unknown signal because the virus scanner does not recognize it. 1.2. The E-theory analysis of fear, frequency mismatch. Mathematically speaking, fear is nothing more than a frequency mismatch. In E-theory, we use three axes: time, frequency, and resolution. When an interaction with the H.E.A.R.T.s occurs, they transmit information at an extremely high resolution. Our human processor, the brain, often cannot handle this massive amount of data. This results in data overload. Because our hardware cannot translate the resolution into a clear image, the system translates the noise into a physical fear response, a pounding heart, and the fight-or-flight mechanism. We are not afraid of the visitor's intent, we are afraid of the intensity of the data. 1.3. The short circuit of the mind, sleep paralysis, and hallucination. Many scary stories of abductions and nightly visitors can be traced back to fascinating neurological phenomena that we are only now beginning to truly understand. Sleep paralysis, the visitor in the bedroom. You wake up, but your body is still in the locked state of REM sleep. Your brain panics, notices the paralysis, and projects an intruder into the room to explain the situation. In the past, we called these demons or witches. Today, we project the gray onto them. Narcolepsy and microsleep. Dream and reality flow seamlessly into one another. A missing time experience can simply be a neurological glitch where the brain briefly switches to a different frequency. Xenophobia and stereotypes. Our innate fear of the unknown is fed by Hollywood archetypes. We see what we expect to see. If the media tells us aliens are gray monsters, our brain will use that template to fill in the confusion during an unexplainable experience. 1.4. The 98% secrets, DNA markers and myths. There is often talk of the abductee profile, people with green eyes or an Rh negative blood group being chosen more often. While this may partly be research bias, people looking for patterns to validate their experience, the true key lies in the remaining 98% of our DNA, the so-called junk DNA. In this vast archive lies stored data from millions of years of interaction with the environment. It is possible that specific genetic markers do not act as a target, but as an antenna. Some people simply have the hardware settings to pick up higher frequency signals. This isn't magic. It is bioantenna technology. 1.5. The echo of the ancients, aboriginals, and gods. Let us not forget that we are not the first to see this. Indigenous groups like the Aboriginals have told stories for tens of thousands of years about the Wangina, sky beings who shaped the earth. They do not have a bad rep for these beings. They see them as part of the natural order. Why are they not afraid while we are? Because they haven't let their firewall be hijacked by modern xenophobia. Their common sense accepts that the cosmos is a neighborhood, not a battlefield. They instinctively understand that what we call evil is often simply a frequency we haven't yet learned to tune into. Beth. Insight 1. The Firewall Unmasked. ET's bad rep is not an external danger, but an internal security warning. Our fear is proof that our biological firewall is functioning correctly, but also that the software is outdated. The Beth hypothesis teaches us that we should not fight the visitor, but rather upgrade our own resolution to be able to read the message. Chapter 2. The Decoupling. Barbarism versus hyper-technology. In this chapter, we peel back the layer of horror stories. We are going to look at the logic of a civilization that is 500,000 years ahead of us. If you truly grasp that leap in time, you immediately see that most scary alien tales simply do not align with the technological reality of a Type 2 civilization. 2.1. Is it settled with an explanation? The nuance. While science claims it is all neurological short-circuiting, such as sleep paralysis, there remain gaps in that explanation that we cannot ignore. A dream does not explain physical scars, mysterious objects under the skin, or the fact that hundreds of people see the same object in the sky simultaneously. When we look soberly at these gaps, 3 logical explanations remain that have nothing to do with scary space monsters. Physical traces. Scars can result from unconscious actions during a vivid dream, microsleep, or sleepwalking. The terrestrial monster. Many reports of implants or medical trauma point instead toward our own military financial complex. Think of covert operations where humans involuntarily serve as guinea pigs for earthly technology. Collective experiences. UFO sightings by large groups can be the result of advanced mind control or crowd control by that same terrestrial monster, or simply drugs and peer pressure. 2.2. The source of the images. Why do we see the same thing? Why do people who have never met often describe the same details? DNA memory. Deep down, our DNA knows what another biological intelligence looks like. It is a logical blueprint we recognize as soon as the frequency matches. The zeitgeist. We use the language of our own generation. What we now call a gray, people used to call a demon. It is the same high-frequency experience, but translated through a different lens. The iPad comparison. Someone from the Middle Ages would mistake an iPad for devilish sorcery. We are currently in that same position. We see technology we don't understand and therefore label it scary or magical. 2.3. Debunking physical probing. Why scalpels are nonsense. The idea that an advanced civilization would abduct us to physically cut us open with metal instruments is technologically laughable. Remote DNA/RNA sensing. A civilization 500,000 years ahead scans your entire genetic code from a distance of thousands of miles. They can read your biosphere from a simulation layer without ever touching you physically. Energetic inefficiency. Physical mutilations, as often claimed in cattle mutilation cases, are energetically completely illogical for a Type 2 civilization. Why slaughter an entire cow when you can extract all data from a single hair follicle via a frequency scan? 2.4. Screen memories and military projection, MILABs. Many traumatic experiences are, in reality, MILABs, military abductions. The human power monster uses advanced technology to abduct people and projects an alien layer over it. Our own brain assists in this. When we have an experience that is too high frequency to comprehend, we reach for familiar, often scary, images from movies to fill the void. We call these screen memories. 2.5. The hard reality. What remains? If we cross out all pranks, hallucinations, and military deceptions, a rock-solid core remains that cannot be ignored. Unexplainable objects. Things are flying through our airspace that defy the laws of inertia. Historical anomalies. The precision of the pyramids is virtually impossible using only human strength from that era. Mathematics in the field. Some crop circles contain fractal mathematics so complex that a prank with a rope and a plank is statistically impossible. Beth Insight 2. The logic of the mentor. A civilization 500,000 years ahead does not need scalpels to understand us. Barbarism is a symptom of a lack of technology and consciousness. The Beth hypothesis states that their presence here is the mathematical proof of their benevolence. They have survived the destructive phase of their own evolution and now operate as the peaceful curators of the biosphere. Chapter 3. The Map of Power, the $1 trillion monster. In this chapter, we leave biology and the stars behind to look at the hard, earthly numbers. We must dare to ask the question, cui bono, or who profits from the fear of E.T.? The bad rep of our cosmic neighbors is no accident. It is a highly profitable marketing strategy of a system that we ourselves maintain. 3.1. The anatomy of the smear campaign. Always a new enemy. The military financial complex, the monster that devours everything, can only survive through the grace of fear. Fear justifies trillions in defense budgets, the erosion of our privacy, and the control over the masses. But fear needs fuel, an enemy. Look at history. The system consistently points to a new bogeyman that always seems a step larger and more invisible than the last. In the Middle Ages, it was witches. Later, it was communists. Then we were given terrorists. And now we have arrived at the ultimate invincible enemy, the alien in our reality, E.T. By painting E.T. as a threat, the monster creates an everlasting mandate to gather power and money. We must defend ourselves against space, is the new business model. 3.2. The psychological prison, the horror of reality. Why do we put up with this? Because the truth is too painful to accept. We would rather imagine ourselves safe and free in a system that actually keeps us trapped and restricted than face the horror that our own leaders are exploiting us. It is easier to be afraid of a gray alien coming to get you at night than to accept that the financial military monster is bleeding you dry every day through taxes, debt, and control. We all play a part. By failing to be critical, by consuming the fear, and by staying in the rat race, we are just as responsible for maintaining this ruthless system. 3.3. Funded xenophobia, the algorithms of fear. Disclosure is not only blocked by secret documents, but by the software in your pocket. Algorithms on social media and YouTube are programmed for engagement. A video about friendly ETs bringing us clean energy gets hardly any views. A video about aliens taking over our planet and stealing our DNA goes viral. Fear sells. Fear keeps you glued to the screen. This is a deliberate blockade of true disclosure. The system finances and promotes xenophobia, fear of the stranger, because a frightened population is easier to steer than a population that feels connected to the cosmos. 3.4. The economy of abundance versus the monopoly. This is the core of the matter. Why is E.T. not allowed to be friendly? Because a friendly E.T. is the death blow to the current power monopoly. Free energy. A Type 2 civilization uses energy directly from the source code of the universe. If that technology arrives here, oil, gas, and electricity bills become a thing of the past. End of scarcity. The entire financial system is based on the premise that there isn't enough for everyone. E.T. brings the mathematics of abundance. Loss of power. If we realize we are part of a cosmic family, national borders and the need for massive armies vanish. The bad rep is therefore pure marketing for the preservation of control. The monster doesn't want you to see the key to the cage, so it tells you that monsters live outside of it. Beth Insight 3. The end of scarcity. The trillion-dollar monster feeds on the illusion of danger and scarcity. The Beth hypothesis unmasks the bad rep as a marketing trick by the military financial complex. As soon as we accept the H.E.A.R.T.S as our cosmic family, the monopoly on fear collapses, and we clear the way for the mathematics of abundance and free energy. Chapter 4. The Serpent and the Deception. Religion as a weapon. In this chapter, we put our finger on the sore spot, the deliberate confusion of tongues. We are being bombarded with ancient labels for a hyper-modern reality. It is the Tower of Babel in a new guise, an intentional chaos of information designed to polarize and drive us apart. 4.1. The inverted world, from angels to demons. Let's look at the facts soberly. Why must there suddenly be a solution for an enemy that has never demonstrably harmed us? Aside from a few persistent, often human-fabricated rumors of abduction, the cosmic visitor has never attacked us. On the contrary, the path we have known for thousands of years, that of the benevolent messengers or angels who assist us, is now being taken away. In its place, we are given the opposite, the demon card. This is a man-made problem. Through sophisticated mind and crowd control, we are being told that what was once divine is now evil. We are being made afraid of our own salvation. 4.2. The demon card, outdated navigation. Politicians like J.D. Vance and religious hardliners reach back to a 2,000-year-old map to explain a situation 500,000 years in the future. That is like trying to navigate a quantum computer with a handwritten piece of medieval parchment. The deception. By labeling E.T. as demonic, you close the door to dialogue and understanding. The fear. If something is satanic, you no longer have to listen to it. That is the ultimate conversation stopper for our thinking capacity. It is a religious firewall designed to keep humanity within the walls of the church and the state. 4.3. The mathematical serpent, sine wave versus Satan. This is where it gets truly interesting. In the source code of the tree of life and in our DNA, we encounter the serpent. In religion, the serpent is the symbol of evil, the tempter. But let's set aside the religious lens and put on the scientific one. In mathematics and physics, the serpent is simply the sine wave. It is the fundamental movement of energy, light, and data activation. Without this wave, there is no vibration, no music, and no life. The distortion. Religious interpretations have turned this mathematical necessity into a satanic evil. The reality. The serpent is the carrier of information. It is the current that activates our DNA to a higher resolution. By demonizing this flow, they block our own evolution. 4.4. Project Bluebeam, the fabricated invasion. If the bad rep alone isn't enough to keep us under their thumb, the military financial monster has one more card up its sleeve. Project Bluebeam. This is the warning of a human-fabricated alien invasion using holographic technology and advanced weaponry. The goal: to drive humanity so deep into fear that we beg for a one-world government and total control. The paradox. While the real herds patiently wait for our growth, the monster could put on a fake show to wipe out the last remains of freedom. 4.5. Polarization polarizes itself. We see that the discussion about ET is splitting society. You are either a believer or a skeptic, or you see them as saviors or demons. This polarization is not a byproduct, it is the goal. For as long as we fight each other over labels, we are not looking at the true power structures filtering the information. You and I unwittingly contribute to this by staying in those camps. The only way out is the 180-degree turn to the Beth hypothesis. Logic, mathematics, and the heart. Beth Insight 4. The transformation of the serpent. The demon is a creation of our own misled minds, fueled by institutions afraid of losing their power. The Beth hypothesis corrects the religious deception. The serpent is not an enemy, but the sine wave of information activating our DNA. It is time to end the confusion of Babel and speak the universal language of mathematics once again. Chapter 5. The 180-degree turn. ET as system administrator. In this chapter, we turn the viewer around. We stop looking at ET as the intruder and start looking at ourselves. Why do we resist a wisdom greater than our own so vehemently? The answer is painfully human. We are addicted to our own limitation. 5.1. The paradox of the anti-smoker. Pride and addiction. Think of the fanatical anti-smoker. I know the story of my brother. Well into his adulthood, he was fiercely against smoking. He lectured his parents and anyone who would listen, fully convinced of his own righteousness. Until the moment he took that first puff, inhaled the addictive substance, and was converted. Suddenly, the enemy had become a part of himself. This is exactly what is happening with our attitude toward the cosmic family. We scream bloody murder about intruders and demons, but we do so from a deep-seated fear of losing our self-proclaimed superiority. Surrendering to an entity that is wiser, larger, and more powerful, where one ET stands against millions of humans, feels terrifying. We are told that inhaling this new reality can only lead to coughing, spitting, and misery. But deep down we know better. 5.2. Addiction to suffocation. The truth is that this ET-less world we currently live in is suffocating. It is a world without a real view, a dead-end street of endless repetition. And yet, we are addicted to it. Hormonal reward. Our bodies have become addicted to the stress and fear hormones of the checkmate. Every time we can get angry at an enemy or feel superior by excluding another, we get a hit of adrenaline and cortisol. It feels like a reward for our self-satisfied attitude. The peer pressure of pride. We are too proud to acknowledge others, especially under the pressure of the group. We are the crown of creation, we shout, while meanwhile we are stripping the earth bare. 5.3. The modesty of the individual. When you look at each human individually, you often see something very different. Individually, we are usually modest enough to acknowledge that we are just trying our best. We know we are only a small part of a gigantic world of opinions and experiments. But as soon as we step into a group, hubris creeps back in. We would rather muddle along alone in our own misery than admit to another, or to the cosmos, that we need help. We keep the door closed to the system administrator purely because we don't want to admit that our own software is full of bugs. 5.4. Non-intervention. The teacher doesn't strike. The H.E.A.R.T.S understand this human psychology perfectly. That is why they apply the non-intervention logic. Training in progress. They do not see us as prey, but as a classroom full of students in the middle of a difficult exam. A good teacher doesn't storm into the room to pull the pen out of your hand and write down the answer. He observes, guides subtly, and waits for the student to take the logical step themselves. Not harvest, but growth. The thought that they are coming to harvest us is a projection of our own barbaric history. In reality, they operate as the system administrators of the tree of life, the interface of our reality. Their interaction is exclusively intended to raise our resolution. They want us to see the screen more sharply, so we are no longer afraid of the pixels, but begin to understand the movie. 5.5. The mentor status. Once we make that 180-degree turn, ET changes from a monster into a mentor. We stop fighting the shadows on the wall and turn toward the light source. The addiction to fear gives way to the sober reality. We are not alone. We have never been alone, and we are being helped to finally grow up. Beth, Insight 5. Surrendering to growth. Our human pride is the only real barrier to disclosure. We are like the stubborn teenager who refuses help while drowning in his own complexity. The BETH hypothesis reminds us that the H.E.A.R.T.S are here as system administrators. Their non-intervention is not absence, but the ultimate respect for our individual and collective growth phase. Chapter 6. The Update. Full disclosure as liberation. We have reached the final step. The beauty of this entire ET problem is that it isn't actually a problem. The solution has been encrypted in your own DNA for millions of years. The only thing still separating us from the cosmic family is that very last major software update. 6.1. The natural state. Not new life, but maximum life. Now let's make one thing very clear. ET did not invent a new way to live. Life is life, everywhere in the universe. What they did find is the way to maximize that life. Imagine an existence where joy and safety are so self-evident that fear simply no longer exists in your vocabulary. In that new world, you forget what it was like to be afraid, or rather, it is no longer even taught to new generations. The fragility and the struggle of our old Type 0 life will then be merely vague memories of humanity's distant childhood. 6.2. The ultimate drug, without the hangover. The transition to this new reality is like the ultimate drug, but without the destructive symptoms of addiction you want to escape. Free from fear. Instead of the hits of adrenaline and cortisol we are currently addicted to, see Chapter 5, we switch to a constant flow of clarity and connection. Not addiction, but fulfillment. It is not an escape from reality, but the full embrace of the true reality. It is a state of being where you no longer must in order to survive, but where you may in order to create. 6.3. Expiration date 2026. The shelf life of fear. We have discussed it before. Everything has an expiration date, including our fear-based dogmas. By 2026, that date, THT, has been reached. The old packaging, the religious metaphors, the political enemy images, and the biological firewall no longer protects us. It suffocates us. It is time to throw away the packaging and activate the contents. The new source code is not airy-fairy, but based on the most efficient mathematics in the universe, love and unity. In a system where everything is connected to everything else, as E-theory demonstrates, cooperation is simply the most logical and energy-efficient path. 6.4. The perfect fulfillment of free will. We often think that free will means we have to figure everything out ourselves, even if we make a mess of it. But true liberation is the choice to accept help when you have reached the limits of your own abilities. Not victims, but students. The step toward the future is the acceptance that we are not victims of intergalactic monsters, but students of an infinite cosmos. Voluntary connection. The H.E.A.R.T.S force nothing upon us. The update is ready in the cloud. We only need to collectively say yes to the installation. That is the ultimate fulfillment of our free will, choosing the upgrade to our own highest resolution. Beth, Insight 6. Activating the source code. E.T.'s bad rep was the necessary resistance of a system afraid to grow up. The Beth hypothesis concludes that the solution is already within our DNA. The firewall can come down. What we find on the other side is not an intruder, but the perfect fulfillment of our free will. The step from a frightened species to a galactic family. Hans J.C. Bakker, March 2026, the Netherlands.